On March 7, 2025, a federal judge in Missouri made a landmark ruling, ordering China to pay over $24 billion to the state of Missouri. This historic judgment is the culmination of a lawsuit filed in April 2020, marking a significant moment in the legal and geopolitical landscape. The lawsuit, spearheaded by then Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmitt, centered around China's actions during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. The judge's decision, a resounding victory for Missouri, has sent shockwaves through the international community. The $24 billion figure represents the largest judgment ever awarded in Missouri's history, dwarfing any previous legal victory. The lawsuit and subsequent judgment have ignited intense debate, raising questions about international accountability, pandemic responsibility, and the complexities of enforcing legal decisions on a global scale. The case has captured global attention, with legal experts and world leaders closely watching the unfolding events. The outcome of this landmark case could have far-reaching consequences, potentially setting a precedent for future legal battles related to pandemic-related losses. Missouri's legal battle against China stemmed from a deep sense of grievance over the devastating impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the state. The lawsuit, filed in the early days of the pandemic, reflected the growing frustration and anger felt by many in Missouri and across the United States. At the heart of the lawsuit were accusations of China's deliberate attempts to conceal the true extent of the virus outbreak. Missouri alleged that China, instead of alerting the world to the dangers of the virus, engaged in a campaign of misinformation and censorship. This alleged cover-up, according to Missouri, allowed the virus to spread unchecked, transforming a regional outbreak into a global pandemic. Missouri further accused China of exacerbating the crisis by hoarding PPE such as masks, gloves, and gowns, which were in desperately short supply worldwide. This hoarding, Missouri argued, crippled the state's ability to adequately respond to the pandemic, leaving its healthcare workers vulnerable and its citizens at risk. The lawsuit detailed the devastating economic consequences of the pandemic on Missouri, pointing to widespread job losses, business closures, and a sharp decline in tax revenue. Missouri claimed that China's actions directly contributed to these economic hardships, leaving the state grappling with the fallout of a crisis it did not create. The lawsuit, a bold legal maneuver, sought not only financial compensation for Missouri's losses, but also a measure of accountability from China for its alleged role in the pandemic. The courtroom became a battleground of evidence and arguments as Missouri presented its case against China. Central to Missouri's argument was the assertion that China, by suppressing information and hoarding PPE, had acted negligently and recklessly, thereby exacerbating the global pandemic. The state presented evidence it claimed demonstrated China's early awareness of the virus's severity and its deliberate attempts to downplay the risks. Missouri's legal team meticulously documented the state's struggles to secure essential medical supplies, highlighting the impact of China's alleged PPE hoarding. The court heard testimony from medical professionals, economists, and individuals directly impacted by the pandemic in Missouri. The testimony painted a grim picture of a state overwhelmed by the crisis, grappling with a shortage of healthcare workers, overflowing hospitals, and a rising death toll. Missouri's legal team argued that the state's suffering was a direct result of China's actions, and that the $24 billion judgment was a fair and just compensation for the immense losses incurred. The landmark $24 billion judgment against China marks a significant legal victory for Missouri, but the road ahead is fraught with complexities. Enforcing this judgment presents a unique set of challenges, as it involves navigating the intricacies of international law and diplomacy. China, for its part, has vehemently denied the allegations and has shown no indication of accepting the court's decision. The Chinese government has denounced the judgment as null and void, arguing that the U.S. court lacks jurisdiction over a sovereign nation like China. This stance raises questions about the enforceability of the judgment and the potential for diplomatic tensions between the two global powers. Missouri, however, remains resolute in its pursuit of the $24 billion, exploring various avenues to seize Chinese assets within the state and potentially abroad. The state is also seeking cooperation from the federal government to identify and target Chinese assets that could be used to satisfy the judgment. This case has far-reaching implications, extending beyond the immediate financial stakes. The judgment, if successfully enforced, could set a precedent for holding nations accountable for their actions during global health crises. It could also embolden other states and nations that have suffered losses due to the pandemic to pursue legal action against China. The outcome of this legal battle will likely shape the future of international relations and global health governance for years to come.